Hi, thank you for joining me today in this video segment, and we're going to talk a little bit about primarily FHA loans. My name is Robert Chartier. I am the broker of the Chartier Realty Group, and I'm going to dispel some facts from fiction about FHA financing, and I'm going to use a real-world scenario on a property that we closed recently. Out there in the field, we run into all different type of agents with all different levels of skills, from the brand new agents, which will gladly help and guide along to make sure the transaction goes smoothly, to the older seasoned agents that for some reason fell off the track of learning and staying educated on our business. Just gonna leave that as it is. It is what it is. So we recently put an offer on a short sale on a property over in Rancho Bernardo, and the agent was I'll tell you, this guy was a gem to deal with, really, genuinely. He was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful gentleman to do business with. He was really a professional as far as his mannerisms and how our communication with him, I'm going to tell you, is very, very, very good. A rare thing you'll ever see me say, but in this case that was true, and we were very pleased with him. He did everything he could to bend over backwards to make the transaction go forward. Now, having said that, and set the stage for the fact that this agent was a really good agent, he was a very seasoned agent. Also, this agent had a lot of trepidations and reservations on selling his listing, the short sale, for his client, with a client that had a FHA loan. He was worried about things that agents that don't understand how the FHA work would call out on. You have to know how to, let me put it this way, you have to know how to deal with things. There are certain things that are standards that everyone knows, the banks know, and the banks will tell you. And then with our 30+ years of experience, we know how to get around things and deal with things and bend the rules and deal with the guidelines without ever going out of legal compliance. Art and the science of the business. And with FHA loans, the art and the science of the business is how deals, it's the difference between a transaction closing where many agents would think it's impossible, where we do what they perceive to be impossible. For us, we don't even engage in a transaction with a buyer unless we already know with a 99.999% certainty that their type of financing vehicle they're coming into the transaction is going to successfully close the transaction. Case in point, this agent was very concerned about our client's FHA financing. Number one, the pool, had a large pool, jacuzzi, was absolutely emerald green. Horrible. It was a cesspool. It was a disaster. The house had a water leak. It was leaking. At one time it had a pretty severe leak, and there was mold that was crawling out of the wall that actually, it was pretty gross, out of the kitchen. When you open a cabinet in the bottom, mold was growing, and you can tell it had been there for quite some time. Had a toilet that was plugged up. The plumbing, the evacuation system of or the drain for the toilet downstairs was plugged pretty bad. House had all kinds of little dings and dents that get caught by FHA, cracked windows, chipping paint. I can go on and on and on. I said this before, I'll say it again. I'm going to give you as a consumer some insight and information. This is not a training video for agents that don't know how to deal with this and haven't been trained properly at their office. And it takes years to figure this out, and years to get very, very, very up to speed on how you deal with certain situations. It takes time. Just like you can't get a 4-year college education in 6 months. It takes time to absorb and learn things. So on this particular property, getting back to the point, the agent, won't give his name, super guy, as I stated, very nice, very professional with us, very flexible, which is why it closed. He wasn't a snit. He wasn't one of those agents with an attitude that only gets in the way of a closing. He was a good guy. So he brought up 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, 12 times, probably at least a dozen times. He was concerned about our client's FHA financing. The client was a Sony executive. Stellar credit, stellar financing. Financing was great, phenomenal reserves. Everything was just about picture perfect. But this agent that was selling the property on short sale had deep reservations about the FHA. Now, typically a pool that is not cleaned is a problem with FHA. Mold is a problem with the FHA. Chip paint, cracked windows, garage doors not working, plugged up plumbing, certain configurations of the house not being fully functional are indeed valid FHA concerns. However, when you're experienced, as we are, and I say that with pride, we've been doing this for over 30 years. Both when I started out unlicensed, doing it and flipping homes myself. In '93, I first got my real estate license. I don't know if I've mentioned that in other videos. And spent 8 years in mortgage banking. All those elements of experience come together. We haven't crashed an escrow, not one due to financing issues, not one in 6, and I believe it's 7 years now. This is not a mistake or a stupid luck. This is experience. So our client came in. He knew about the FHA issues as well, and even our own client was concerned. I said, I'll handle it. Trust me. Just please trust me and let me take care of it. This client was very nice clients, highly educated, pretty sophisticated client, and fortunately they listened to me. They said, okay, Robert, if anything goes wrong, it's on you. I said, I'll take that challenge. I will take that responsibility. I understand, and everything will be cool. Just let me deal with it, please. And they did that. So, moral of the story is, the pool was green. It was financed. I won't say the name of the bank, but it was financed by one of the largest mortgage banks in the state of California. And if anybody knows anything about the larger banks, they also tend to be the pickiest, the most nitpickingest banks. We don't have a problem with that because we know how to deal with everything and keep the transaction 100% legally compliant. So this is what we did. The pool was emerald green. The pool had some challenges that we had with the paint and things. We took care of it. The cracked window, we fixed it. The mold in the kitchen, we took care of it. We just took care of all this stuff. It didn't take a dime out of our client's pocket up front, so there was no risk for our client, not a penny. It did put at no risk to. I took the responsibility, the risk, the financial investment to get the house squared away. Matter of fact, fell on me. And I will take that risk when I know that risk is going to work out. So I took the risk of taking care of the mold. I took care of the broken windows, all the little nitpicking things that FHA is really anal retentive about, garage doors, stop toilets. I fixed it. I took care of it. I had my contractor come over. We fixed everything. So, but the pool, we didn't get to the pool because it was so severe, it took extra time. Believe it or not, this bank actually approved the financing when the pool was green. Now, that is something right there in itself. I want to make a point that is typically going to be the kiss of death to the loan. Done. We had backup concessions. I already had a pool guy lined up to take care of it, but we found out at the last 2-3 days before closing, we had plenty of time to get the pool taken care of, that the bank waived it. How did that happen? My secret, not going to tell you, because agents that know that trick will close a lot more of their transactions because there are a lot of homes out there, short sales and distressed properties that have very green pools. It's not a 100% guarantee that you're not going to have to repair those, but 50% of the time, if not higher, we can get away with that. There's a way to do it. Legally, ethically, honestly, and in full FHA compliance. And that's the key thing. Full FHA compliance. Must be FHA compliant. So we know what to say, how to say, and who to talk to, and what to do. We know the contractors. We'll talk to the appraisers. We talk to the banks. And we know what to tell them. It's always going to be 100% upfront and honest of how we are going to handle that. So our client doesn't have to dish all that money out of their pocket and potentially take a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 loss on a property that they'll never own. We don't put clients in those situations. There's never, if you're a competent agent, there's never any excuse or reason to put a buyer into that strong of a potential loss on a property they may not buy. Now, as far as the appraisal and home inspections and all the other standard things, yes, that's always going to be that's part of the buyer's risk in every single transaction, FHA conventional or VA. That's the way it works. That doesn't change. But when you have quote-unquote problem child properties that have multiple issues, an agent that's worth their weight in salt has the experience, the knowledge, and the competence. And the big word here is competence. The second big word would be experience. They go hand in hand. The level of competence and experience have to be equal, and they have to be very high to know how to deal with these situations and get the property through financing. In other words, get it to close. Moral of the story is, it closed smooth as glass. This agent, the listing agent, the guy we really like, this guy, he was absolutely beside himself, and he was asking me, how did you do that? How did you get that finance? He says, nobody does that. I said, well, I almost said his name. I said, I'll use a name I'm going to make up. Joe, it's all in the art of the deal and knowing how to do it, and how to keep everything compliant, being upfront with the bank, being upfront with the FHA guidelines, and being to the point, and taking the extra time it takes to explain as to how we are going to deal with that to keep the file compliant, to keep everything copacetic, to keep everybody happy, to keep everybody, the transaction completely legal, and how we structure the transaction to deal with these things. There's almost nothing that I cannot deal with short of a house that it's been partially burnt down. Anything short of that, I'm going to get through a VA or FHA financing by the book, following the rules, following the guidelines. And if you find a home that you really want, and this particular buyer, by the way, when they found it was a half-acre lot, 270-degree panoramic view for a killer price on short sale. This thing was like the deal of the century, dead square in a cul-de-sac, short little road. It was a money property, big time money property. So that my buyer had told me directly, he says, Robert, we want this one. So I put the offer in. The property had been on the market for over a year, by the way. Just I may want to add that. Over a year. That property had been in and out of an escrow 4 times, as per the listing agent. I have no way of verifying that, but the listing agents are typically pretty honest with me about how many times a property has been in and fallen out of an escrow position. So 4 people in the last year had tried to buy that property, and all 4 of those people had failed to close escrow. So as you can imagine, the listing agent had serious reservations about almost everything at that point, because nothing will burn a bank out in a short sale or burn an agent out more, and for that part will burn the seller out more